Now, at this point, every Thursday morning, we look at the best-selling business and management book titles, and Alan Jordan, Sales Director of BookBuzz, is with me in studio. Alan, very good morning to you. Always good to see you. Really good, interesting title this week, Give and Take by Adam Grant, a man who is the youngest professor at Wharton University in the US. What's this about?
Yeah, it's not often that I'll start a quote from the King James edition of the Bible from our Lord Jesus, who says, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." And I suppose in Adam Grant's book, that's really the point he's getting out. He's, for all those givers out there who maybe feel that, you know what, I've been giving so much but I've been getting nothing back in return, there is hope for you all.
I don't mind religious quotations at this hour of the morning, just the one we'll take. This book is a very interesting take on how sales works.
Yeah, it is. And look, I suppose it turns out in that at work most people operate as either takers, matchers or givers. So takers strive to get as much as possible from others, matchers aim to trade evenly, and then givers are kind of that rare breed of people who contribute to others without expecting anything in return. And what he's trying to do, Grant, because this is only published this year, now it's a little bit of hyperbole there with a revolutionary approach to success, because most Irish people will get this, that look, it's good to give, it makes sense. And what he does in the book is it looks at really how the whole aspect of giving works, and more importantly, if you feel that you need to give more, maybe the types of tools and techniques that you should apply to be able to do that.
Looking at some of the examples in it, he gives everything from basketball, Enron, television industry, lots of interesting little examples.
He does. You know what's interesting about a lot of the books that we're covering in is how cognitive biases come into it. So he talks about a thing called the perspective gap that is a challenge for most people, and there's a lot of evidence, particularly that shows that doctors consistently think their patients are feeling less pain than they actually are. So without being in a state of pain themselves, physicians can't fully realise what it's like to be that way. And this is a real difficulty when you come to collaborate. Remember we did that book on bioteams a couple of weeks ago, which really shows a huge amount of work done in business is through teams. And if you can't cross that perspective gap, and takers can't, because they can't actually get in the shoes of someone else around the table, see your ideas, appreciate what you're coming up with, and therefore we lose the chance to grow and develop. Do you know what it fits in? We've covered books like Influencing the Psychology of Persuasion, Zappos, Employees First, Customer Second, which all talk about people needing to give more.
This guy sounds like a bit like a Malcolm Gladwell type. That's the guy, Outliers.
Yeah, it is, Ian, and I suppose if you like Gladwell Tipping Point, and if you haven't really done Psychology 101 and you're not sure on giving, it's probably a book for you. There's a little bit difficult in that sometimes when you get stuck into it, you think that it's stating the obvious, but it is backed up by some interesting research, and where the book comes into its own, a bit like we did the one, remember Guy Kawasaki on APE, where the digital version had over 400 links of where to get information, how to self-publish. Where Give and Take comes is where it sends you to areas whereby if you feel in your own organisation you want to have more reciprocity, you want to have more peer recognition, you want to find out ways that you can give more, it gives you a kind of a reservoir of information where to go and find that out.
Always worried about people applying popular psychology to the workplace.
Yeah, but I suppose the difficulty or the interesting thing about the book is he's a lot of research to back up the whole issue around about this giving. In fact, at the start of the book, it talks about a whole series of doctors, and it was looking at the doctors actually gave their time, particularly earlier in their career. And what they found out, the problem is that givers both lose and also are winners. So the people who had the lowest grades and the highest grades were both givers. And it showed really why for doctors, it particularly happened earlier in their careers. They were giving a lot of their time instead of going home to study. Maybe the grades weren't so good. But they really benefit when they had to work in teams, when you really had to give of yourself to develop that kind of trust and transparency. And that's where organisations begin to take and grow.
Does he give any practical examples as to how this can be used in a normal workplace?
No, he does, in fairness. And there is, first thing is that we never started off with a question in yourself. Are you a giver or a taker?
I answered the question. I asked the questions here, Alan.
Yeah, indeed. And you know what? Our confirmation bias would say that, listen, we probably think that we're both brilliant givers. There's an interesting one. If you get onto the book, it it actually you can try your giver quotient, which gets on, asks you simple kind of 10 or 15 questions, tells you whether you're a giver or taker. Also, how to run a reciprocity ring.
What's that?
What the hell is that, Alan? That's actually whereby you'll sit down with colleagues maybe for 20 minutes a day to find out ways how you can better interact and help each other with no hidden agenda. So, for example, maybe you want something, you want a better chair in the studio, you're tired of seeing that what Pat Kenny gets. Well, okay, Ian, we'll look at that. So people begin to look and say how we can help each other without there being actual gain for us. Tons of embrace the 5-minute favour. What? How can you do things for other people without costing it? Because sometimes our organisations, peer recognition programs carry this, okay, we're going to have to spend some money. So a lot of information on how you can go to help fund a project, how you can engage with your community. And what the book is really saying that, look, when you give, and we know, being good Christians that we are, that actual fact, yeah, we'll feel better in the long run if you don't go out looking for something in return.
Okay, Alan Jordan, Sales Director of BookBuzz, thank you very much for coming in with that title, Give and Take by Adam Grant, a revolutionary approach to success. As I said, a bit like a Gladwell book, whose book is coming out in the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll get to have a look at that. Alan, thanks very much for coming in. Up next, American companies